and kind of give your thoughts on, where we've been.
And in case he's just listening and not looking, it's workforce and organizational culture, brief recap of accomplishments, Mark.
Yeah, sure. Let me take a stab at it here. So I think for workforce and organizational culture, what we've done, we've developed a series of maturity statements, of course, which I think are part of, what the to-be situation where you want to go, and then we've developed a series of questions, which of course you've been participating in, Caroline. So we've developed questions in order to get a sense of where an organization is, because these are subjects that have to be measured by people who are in the organization. It's not and I don't want to say it's a completely subjective test, but in some ways it is a subjective thing, right? It's not like a reading off of a meter. And so we've developed that survey. The change management piece, I think that's the part. Maybe I'll let Cello or Scott talk a little bit about that one, because I haven't been as involved in that one. But from the workforce and organizational culture perspective, I think drawing on all the people that we've had participate, we've really developed a nice maturity level statements and a very good survey. And we've had tremendous input. And I think, Caroline, again, you've been participating in those. So I think we've got quite a bit put together, which is really going to be helpful as we move forward.
So, Cello, do you want to talk about change management, maybe even in the context of some of your graphics, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm going to get to that when we go to the number 2, just kind of provide a little bit of commentary on Eisenhower on the change management. I think it'll be with the graphic a little bit easier to explain. So let me just see. I shouldn't be. Carolyn, in the chat, there's a link to a survey. So when you get a chance, it's just, and you can share it with your colleagues. It's just a survey. 18 people have taken it so far. It took them an average of 6 minutes. It's just to try to gauge what they would be interested in, which areas next year. So you're also encouraged to share this with your colleagues in your organization to see if they are interested in some of the topics they can respond to the survey, because we're going to use this survey to map the work plan and to map the work teams as we continue under the WISE program. So that's that's going to be very useful if you could just spend a few minutes on that survey. We're hoping to get a few more responses, and we'll also use the results from that survey to put together the core teams, similar to how we've had here. The core teams, especially on the people side, when they collaborated on very closely on different topics, including change management and technology. So just in terms of schedule, this month we're just really finalizing the report. And again, let me just give you a link. I will give you a link just in the chat line just in a moment. So you can, if you're interested, you can use this link to look at the report. It has many pages. It's just to the folder where the report is, and there's a folder with underneath subfolder with case studies, with water sector value model stuff, guidelines. So there are things that we've submitted to WRF, and we're waiting to hear their feedback in a few days and sort of close up the project. So that's really for what our scope for May. So we're kind of closing things up and starting to plan the work for next year. And in June, we're going to start to develop the plan for WISE in more detail and engage people according to the results from our survey in terms of where, you know, somebody wants to get involved in asset management, somebody wants to get involved in, you know, a workforce or whatever it is. So we're going to start that in June. We'll probably have a couple of 3 workshops to discuss this with people. And then we're going to plan the engagement because so right now we have roughly 100, actually a little bit over 100 people on the list, and we want to make sure that we target communication to match the people's interests. And what Scott had mentioned about change management, and this is the graphic, because we've worked, our model that we started with includes sort of people, process, and technology, you know, way back some years ago. And so since then, we've refined it a little bit, that we split the people part into workforce and organization. That's what we've been working on during the past 1 year. And we've been working a lot on business processes in the past. The technology piece, there's a different project that WRF is conducting currently that is focused on technology called Smart Utilities and Intelligent Water Systems. So we're going to be sort of folding the results of that work. I'm the co-principal investigator on that one, into our scope for WISE. So the reason why we haven't gotten into change management heavily, we've spent most of the past year people exchanging their ideas and experiences of how they do things now, which methodologies they use, and so forth. But since change is going to impact the workforce, the organization, the processes, and technology, it's sort of an overarching topic. We sort of had to get the basic stuff inside the circle lined up before we can really start, you know, dealing with the process. And we're going to with change management, and we defined it as a process, so we're going to be able to use some tools and methods that we've done for business process modeling, documentation, and improvement. So ultimately, this is what we see sort of as a holistic view of internally within the organization that includes you know, the people, the workforce, organization, processes, and technology, where an organization could do an assessment. These are from 1 to 5, concentrically going, you know, from the center going to the outside, increased maturity, and the black dots are perhaps some theoretical as-is situation that we would get to by performing these analyses and the assessment methods that we've been working on. So the whole left side is really reflected in that survey that we've been working on workforce and organization. So then, so that would sort of show us where we are with the black, and the blue is something, just, you know, an example of what we could look at and which areas we want to improve. So if just to show an example, like for technology, wherever, you know, blue dot is not, you know, is removed from the black dot, to move from that level to the other level would be really change management. And we would have to kind of navigate that spider diagram in all 4 phases to see, you know, where we are, where do we want to improve, where do we want to focus. And the reason I just took one part of it, 1 quarter, is to be able to the graphic to be you know, a little bit easier to read. So I'm going to just pause now. So this was kind of a quick run through, and what we wanted to also do today is, and we don't have to take the full hour, is just kind of get into ideas and thoughts about last year or next year and so forth.
Cello, I might just add, sometimes you go into this as well, but a couple other aspects of all this, in addition to what Cello covered, is some of the feedback that we've gotten so far, and we're looking for more, and so be sure to fill out that survey. But one thing is that people seem to be interested moving in the next phase of applying what they've learned in their utility. So that's one concept that we want to allow utilities to, to thrive doing that. And I guess the other thing is that it's been beneficial. It definitely came out in Monday's conversation that people have really valued the interchange that they've had with others, the joint learning opportunities, like what's Caroline doing on a certain topic area, and versus what's Mark or Zanetta doing, and being able to learn from each other. And this goes for not just the people side, but also the improvement processes, where there's been a lot of real good learning that's gone on. So people want more of that, and we want to make that as easy as possible. And then Cello, we want some feedback, but you also might talk about what you're looking at in terms of WEF and WISE development as well. So Caroline, what's worked for you, and what else are you looking for? And this is pre-survey, but do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that from what I've seen and the little that I've been involved with, it's all looked very good, and it's made a lot of sense to me. And I also reiterate too and agree that the interchange and learning from other people has been really, really valuable for me. I think, and then sort of taking a leap here to sort of speak on behalf of everything going on internally at Metro Vancouver, but I think this next phase will probably be of significantly more interest to us in terms of applying and doing the change management process, because we had already been through a bit of an effort to kind of do the assessment work with a different framework, with that Quinn and Cameron framework. So there wasn't a lot of appetite to sort of do something again, even if it would be an improvement. They were sort of ready to say, what can we do now? Let's start moving things. Let's try and start shifting that needle. So I'm looking forward to seeing, with the continuation of the work, that precisely that as to how to move forward and how to apply it.
Yeah. Well,
that's what's going to be in my survey response.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, but entering into the survey gives us, an easier kind of systematic view and stuff like that. Parijat, welcome. Do you have any thoughts in terms of, I don't know if you had a chance to fill out the survey, just looking back and looking forward, any thoughts on what would be a good idea to do in the next year?
Thank you. Yeah, I think we have discussed this in past, that probably, like Scott mentioned, that we could do some pilot, and I know that we would be doing our survey somewhere in August and September. So maybe, I can have that discussion with our directors and my HR director and see if we are ready, so we can use this when we are doing our next survey. I think that would be most likely in September this year.
That would be phenomenal, yeah.
One thing we heard Monday or Wednesday, I can't remember which, there's so many of these meetings, but Dan Ott, referred to you, but he joined in part to these people side conversations, because he's interested. As you know, he's leading project management and has done some great work with us,
Yeah.
leading our team, and he wants to see you make sure that the people side, maturity and assessment models are applied, and that change management, he really wants to benefit from that. So that's a real good integration where you're focusing on the people side and he's focusing on the process improvement side, and just trying to link those together, which is another case study objective that we would have as well.
Yes, and like you mentioned, change management would be something which would be of great interest to us, not just from process that are changing within KC Water, but um, with change in the leadership as city manager and all of that. So what's going to happen at Kansas City in that perspective as well? So more people changes and process changes that would be coming up. So change management would be an interesting topic for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zonetta, any thoughts from you? I intentionally had you going last because you typically drop those wisdom points a little bit later in the meeting.
No, I think that we're headed in the right direction. I look forward to the move. I think it'll be advantageous. I just encourage everybody to give their feedback and look at how we can, I'm always of a continuous improvement type of person. So look at what we've done really well and have some, honest assessment of where we're going. I think we're going to have to be very diligent about value, and then bringing other people, on board. I think WEF is the perfect avenue for that. And look forward to it. I think it's going to, from my understanding, this committee is going to go under the Utility Management Committee, which I'm the vice chair for that committee. So I look forward to ensuring that, if that's the case, for us to give our full support of it. So.
Yeah, I just wrote down this thing and what you said, that we should look at what we have done well and what we have done not so well. So I
wouldn't say not so well. I would just say
what could be improved. What could be improved?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
no, I don't think we've done anything poorly. I mean, yeah. Not to cut you off, Dr. Cello. Yeah, I think, under the circumstances of us not meeting in person, I think we have done a fabulous job. I look forward to where we can get in person. I think, there's just a lot of opportunities for that face-to-face things as well.
Yeah. And per your advice, Zonetta, I am waiting for June. You suggested I could start. We're trying to figure out how many people are going to be able to make the utility management conference. So you suggested, and I think you were right, that there was too much uncertainty still about travel and the situation. So I'm waiting till June to send out a survey to see how many people are going to go to utility management conference, so that we know what we can, plan for. And also I'll probably be asking them just if they can tentatively say, whether it's how likely it is that they're going to make WEFTEC. So hopefully in another couple of weeks, they'll, people will have a little bit better idea.
Yes, sir. I think you're right. We've had those conversations, and it's still planning to be in person. You can actually book the hotel. They have all those in place. And we've already talked about WEFTEC too. It's going to be, I think WEFTEC is going to be some days in person and some hybrid of that. But of course, the encouragement of having some things on site. So I think in Chicago, they're big. I think they said they're having a huge auto show there. And I think 20,000 people. So that's going to be their first big test of having a large gathering will be in July. So we'll have a lot to learn from that. So,
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
yeah.
Hey, Sonetta, this is
Yes,
kind of
sir.
a side question, and you may or may not have a feel for this, but some people, a couple people have asked
Mhm.
what kind of let's say protections or processes are going to be in place from a COVID standpoint
Mhm.
at these conferences. Do you have any knowledge about that, or maybe Mark does?
Well, yes, sir. If for the, like, for instance, for Utility Management Committee, we have a leadership roundtable. So that's going to be in person. So they are actually having in that room social distancing. These conferences that normally we would have had things that have food and like WEFTEC, they have like lunches and things like that. That won't be happening. So those are going to be everything that you see in place, like it's going to be there. I would assume that masks, based on what's going on in the country, those will probably be optional. But I do think that they are still having in place the social distancing. That's the
Yeah,
plan right now. Because we've limited on how many people could actually be in a room and that type of thing. So it's changed on that format. So and it's interesting because things have rapidly changed, but I think that's the format now.
yeah.
I think
Well,
it's going to be
there
on the
is
conservative side.
yeah. Well, that's good. That's good to hear. I think people will like hearing that.
Yeah.
But there's a pretty, even with UMC, there's a pretty extensive technical program. I mean, we're on that as well.
Mhm.
But if that's in person, then I assume that the venues are going to be large enough to create that distancing as well.
Yes,
So
sir. Yeah.
yeah,
That's what it appears from all the calls that I have been on. And people who are leading those, we're having the same questions that y'all are asking, and I think everybody's just trying to manage it, and it can change from day to day, unfortunately.
yeah,
But they're adamant about it. Will be, and really for the utility management conference, I think AWWA is still the lead on that this time, so they will still make the final determination. So,
yeah,
but that's all what we've heard so far.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mark, I didn't intend to skip you, but are you okay to stick around and talk?
In terms of,
I would just kind of, I know what it's been like for me to be in these meetings after surgery. So I thought it would be kind of mean to be calling on you, but it became also.
no, yeah,
what
I know.
you said.
Yeah, I'm good. I agree with what's been said. I'm like Zonette. I like a continuous improvement model. I think if we just, and I also like the other thing she said that I really liked is we've got to continue to focus on how do we bring value to the utilities. And so those are good words for us to think about as we're planning out this first year under WEF. And with regard to in-person attendance, I won't be a Clean Water Services employee anymore after the end of June, but they've already made a decision that they're not going to have in-person conference attendance this fall. So Clean Water Services is only going to attend virtually for the PNCWA, which is in September, and then WEFTEC in mid-October. They're planning just a virtual attendance this year.
Yeah, part of the thing that's frustrating is that not only has the situation been highly politicized on a really health issue, but that even the scientists are and direction from the CDC and stuff like that sometimes is a little bit confusing because the people who are in physics and and looking at aerosol transmission and stuff like that, one would get a completely different conclusion if you look at one group of scientists who said it is completely useless for you to be washing your hands, and it's masks are extremely important, and other people who say, oh, you got to be washing your hands and stuff like that. One thing that but unfortunately, one critical aspect, which is the vaccination, has been so politicized, and the masks have been so politicized that it makes it difficult to keep such conversation within the boundaries of scientific and sort of health area without, stirring up, because we don't typically discuss politics at these calls or when we think about conferences. But this is one way where, the political things are kind of influencing how we work. Anyway, sorry to get off on a tangent.
Yeah. Kesra, you attended on Monday, and there was sort of a new set of opportunities that came up in the discussion. You were part of that. Some of it was around leadership. Some of it was around related topics, kind of dealing with the issue of, well, you can decide where you want to be, but some of the obstacles and constraints and challenges sometimes are the people in the organization and sometimes the leaders themselves. And maybe you want to just comment on that.
Yeah, I think one of the key things was that what we talked about was a lot of change has to come from top down. And so if the leadership feels like, okay, if they feel like, oh, we're letting people do what they want, or we're creating a culture that's inclusive, or allowing people to do the best that they can, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are. So what we were talking about was maybe developing something at that chief level, where maybe at a chief level that we have some kind of directed questions or workshops where we get the chiefs to come in and kind of talk about how they think they're faring in their organization in terms of culture change, in terms of workforce management. And then, so really, sometimes that's a rude awakening to say, well, I thought I was doing that, but hey, maybe I'm not. And it's also an opportunity for the chief level executives to sort of look at, or, nationwide, what other utilities are doing or implementing that might help them. So I think that was one of the conversations that maybe we should look into developing some sort of maturity model for executive leadership. And then we also talked about, if we had the same workshop that we had for the chiefs, that if we would have the same thing from the same organizations at the middle management level, then we could see what disconnect these, the executive teams have with their middle management teams. So, and then maybe go down to the next team leader or supervisor level. However we do that. But that was one of the things I think that came out of that Monday meeting was, let's make it more focused as opposed to organizational wide. Maybe we can look at doing something specific to each level of an organization.
And Kasra, just to amplify a little bit, we were talking about doing that, not just with say this team, but within an organization, and then allowing others to observe that dialogue.
Well, these will be all really fun things to talk about as we go into the new year. And so I just want to see if there are other things people want to bring up or ideas, and encourage those who haven't done the survey to fill it out, and just thank everybody for, this has been a really how should I say, I'm running out of good words to say about the collaborative effort here and the contributions that people have made and are keep making to this effort. So, any other thoughts people would like to bring up? Okay. Well, I really hope to see you guys, and we're going to try to organize something in June. Let me just stop the recording. We're going to try